Welcome to Between Over and Next with your hosts, Holli and Robert, a happily married couple who explore the space between what was, what is, and what's to come. From career changes to navigating life's uncertainties, this dynamic duo will empower you to live your happiest life at every age and stage. So, get ready because your journey with Holli and Robert starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Between Over and Next. Hi, Holli.
Hi, Robert. And hello to all of our dreamers and doers out there. Today, we're going to talk about bringing vision to reality and helping you make it happen. We're going to offer some tips for exploring, discovering, developing, and even launching your next big thing. There are so many people out there, action takers, side hustlers, dissatisfied 9-to-5ers, and lots of budding entrepreneurs that have so much potential and drive and ambition. Would love to know what the process behind the scenes is to creating something new, a new product, a new service, a new brand. And Robert, that's familiar territory for us.
It is, and I think to kind of allay some of the concern that a lot of people have, we started this journey over 30 years ago when it was far more challenging to do what we do today. And what I mean is there's so much advancement in technology, mainly, to help you along the way, whether it be access to information. I think that's the number one thing. After our wedding, when you had to transition out of material information where you were working with Marcy, even though we hadn't launched Absolute Video, that took a little bit of time. And, you know, it was more like you were working with me. And then we realized that there were some things that had to change and had to evolve, you know, that took us on that path. But back then, the access to information on how to do that, right? How do you change personas? And we were kind of pushed into it because of kind of a conflict of names of two companies similar. So that was kind of the impetus in pivoting, but understanding that we were going to make that change. So we had to get a logo, right? We had to create a whole new presence. We talked about colors for the first time. I didn't think about that before you, that color becomes part of the brand, even beyond just the logo.
We should do a shout out to Stacy.
That was done by hand.
When you go to our About Us page on hollyandrobert.com, you will see 8 distinct brands with 8 distinct logos that we have been highly involved in every single one of these brands and how they look and they feel, not only to us, but to the viewer.
I think next to the name of a company, of a brand, the logo is probably the next most important brand identifier.
I believe that for most, this could be overwhelming. It could be daunting. Like, where do I start? And most of the time, it all starts with an idea. Who are we really talking to right now? And those are people who are considering a pivot. And we talk about that a lot between Over and Next, and even within the title of this podcast. There's a shift between Over and Next. It literally says it. And we're talking about the next big thing because we all need to look ahead of what we want to do to be fulfilled. I do believe that there are retirees that may want to have a passion project. There may be someone out there who it's been like gnawing at them that they want to write a book or perhaps even start a podcast. Every pivot is an opportunity for growth and development. And you have to trust in your abilities. You have to stay persistent and minimize fear. One of the common reasons people personally pivot is they just have a change in their interest or passion.
I think for a lot of people, the transition from a passion into a business is a lot of the times unexpected, like what we talked about with Jill Freckman with pretzels.
Perfect example.
She was making these pretzels because she liked to make the pretzels. It was something she did with her mother, and then someone put that idea in her head of, wait, you really should be selling these.
So she created a product, but all of her background was the foundation for her to successfully put it out to market.
If you take it all the way back, for me, getting into the video business was somewhat accidental. You know, my father and mother bought a video camera. I had always had an interest in the video camera. They got it. I took it. And then my interest in doing it was turned into a business. I guess, I don't remember when it happened, but someone must have said, hey, you know, would you come and videotape my event and I'll pay you? That's how it happened. You know, I don't know when it was, but that's how it happened, from my love of doing video into a business.
That's so cool. So realize your true passion and follow your heart.
Yeah, and just be open to those opportunities.
It was a side hustle, and you are a professional documentarian.
Yeah, I am. But at the time, if you think about it, when that transition happened, I was also working in a bank. When I made that professional pivot, went from, okay, you know, I'll do some here or there, you know, on the side, on the weekends. But there came a point where I made that decision. I'm working at a bank, but I'm also doing video on the weekends.
Two different kinds of experiences, but you tapped into
But I was making,
your passion.
I ended up making more money on the weekends than I was making at the bank.
But that realization allowed you to pivot. You recognized that.
But it was only my life circumstance, because here it was, okay, when I decided, and this was big for me, when I went to my parents, I guess I must have been about 26, 25, 26. I said, I'm leaving the bank. My parents are like, what? Like, what? What are you doing? Well, I'm going to become a videographer full time. And they're like, what? You're going to do what? You know, and I still think they don't quite understand it. But I was only able to do it because I was single. I hadn't met you yet.
But you were also an AV geek. I mean, this was
sure, but that was a big move to leave something that was guaranteed every 2 weeks. I had a paycheck. There was a stock incentive program, and I left to become purely on my own as an entrepreneur. That word didn't exist back then.
So we want to motivate you. We want to inspire you.
Yeah,
we want to guide you to transform on a path towards your personal and professional joy. Some other times, it's life circumstances. Sometimes you move and you need to explore different career opportunities. So you need to update your resume and be open to new possibilities. And sometimes you've just outgrown your current role and you want to seek new challenges. When we recorded with Dave Noonan, he stayed relevant. As there's been a decline in traditional media, a journalist has to reconsider what they're doing, because now you have to become more versed in digital content creation, Robert.
Yeah, you do. I mean, it goes from, you know, number of pages in a magazine to the number of pages on a website. When you're still, you know, you would think, because the internet is infinite in a sense, that there'd be an unlimited amount of room. There still is limited opportunity.
But you're still talking about editorial and advertising,
Well,
and
of
you
course.
still have to find your place in that space.
Right.
So,
And even those, though, you know, in recent years, due to the internet, those lines are becoming increasingly blurry.
what it shows is that you have to be adaptable. You have to continue to up-level your skills. And you definitely have to stay on top of what's going on in the industry, you know, at large, what's going on around you. You can't, you know, live under a rock.
Everybody's expected to be able to embrace technology to some level. As we did in COVID when we had our weekly family get-togethers, there were still people that struggled with the technology as much as we tried to help. Yeah. And it's not always tied to age. Plenty of people that
is
are
true.
younger that just cannot grasp technology. We don't understand it because we're a part of it all the time, but we know plenty of people, they probably won't see this because they haven't embraced any of that, who don't have social media accounts.
Actually, I know people of all ages that
Sure.
don't have it.
Absolutely.
And you know what? There are pros and cons to that. So, other professional reasons why you may pivot with confidence, we want you to pivot with confidence, is your company may have some layoffs. And you may need to explore new career paths. You need to update that LinkedIn profile, and you have to network and consider possibly additional training or education if necessary. And you know what? Sometimes you just might want to start a business, saying, you know what? There's a market for it. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Actually, pivoting to do something that is important and meaningful. And it all starts with an idea. You need to identify those interests. You knew you were always audiovisual. I was always fashion and design and art. And when we combine today, everything we've done since 1992, that is evident. So we're encouraging you, first of all, to look inward. Have some self-reflection on the activities that make you feel most alive. What do you feel like you're talking all the time about with your friends? Is it a hobby or an issue you're passionate about? Be curious about what your next big thing could be. You don't have to figure it out this second, but look for the patterns where you have a unique perspective or skill set, because that intersection of passion and expertise is where the best ideas start, Robert. And as you can hear in my enthusiasm and excitement, that becomes contagious. And that's when others see what you're doing and it inspires you to just keep moving.
We all know when we're excited about something, to do something, to go somewhere, to be with certain people, to be at a certain place. We all know what that excitement feels like. If we can tie that excitement to what we do in life, then we'll go into each day with that excitement and that enthusiasm.
Robert, you know this is one of my favorite things, is mastering the art of brainstorming. That is such a vital part. So anybody who feels stuck or doesn't know where to start, because that's where it starts, is the idea. And we can help you with that. That is something we really do. We do coach on that.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
And we've done it. We've walked the walk, and we're really proud of the businesses and the brands we've designed because there have been iterations and revisions and rethinking and pivots along the way. So you can achieve success through everything we've been through already.
I think the key for us is when we meet someone who's looking to kind of clarify where their next big thing will be. What's the expression that, you don't see what's right in front of your nose, Sometimes when you're so close to what you love, you can't picture it in any other way other than just something that you love. To think about that being what you do to live
as a business
is something that a lot of people don't even think about in that way. And sometimes it takes that objective viewpoint to evaluate someone in what they do in their life to identify those things in which they can turn that into something that generates money for them.
But you have to have a plan. I think most of you have heard about SMART goals.
Mm-hmm.
SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You really have to shape your vision into a plan, into a blueprint, into a framework. So you have to set clear goals because you have to know what is it you want to achieve ultimately. So whether you're looking to solve a problem or fill a gap in the market, you need to not be vague. So what I mean by that means you can't just say, I want to start a business. We've never done that, just so you know.
Right.
Okay.
Well, nothing big has ever been built without
Meaning,
a
I
plan.
want to start a podcast that is going to be fill in the blank, and we can help you do that too. A good place to start is gain insights into your target audience's problems or concerns or interests, like what you're trying to satisfy within your next big thing. We learned about something called Answer the Public.
We'll have a link to that in the show notes. But there are a number of sites out now that kind of aggregate what people are talking about and asking.
And what people are searching.
Exactly. And it's a great place to kind of
Curate.
you curate, and it's kind of like, I look at it as sitting up on a hill and looking down on people and getting a chance to see what those conversations are. What are people talking about? What are people most interested in? And think about it, all different categories of life and business. And it helps you kind of zero in on not only what your own personal path is, but what it is that other people are thinking about. And that will help you refine certainly what you're doing, but more importantly, maybe spur some things and ideas that you hadn't thought about before or hadn't thought about in a long time because other people are thinking about it too. So it's Yeah.
So we want to help you bring your idea to life. So you definitely have to chunk your grand vision into smaller and manageable tasks to make it achievable. Some people do surveys and market research. Some people create a business plan. Some people, if you're creating a product, there's a prototype. So you need to prioritize tasks. Today, there are so many great tools for project management. So to plan, to track, to organize, one of them our son introduced to us is called Notion. And I'll also include in the show notes some of the other top project management tools to use. But it's really important to use those tools to create that detailed plan, that roadmap, if you will. It's really, really important to invest the time to build a strong brand. So Robert mentioned earlier, designing a compelling logo. Eileen designed this. So proud of this logo. All the logos are on our About Us page on hollyandrobert.com, right? I love our Absolute Video logo, hand-drawn with the video camera on top of the tripod, AV. I love everything about it and everything we defined with it. If you were to dissect this logo, you mentioned before color. We hired a designer, a marketer, a publicist. We had a web designer, the first web designer. We lost money. Originally, it was pink and brown, which they presented to us, and I hated. I love the hot pink and black. I love our tagline, advice worth listening to. I was inspired by L'Oreal, that we used lowercase. I love the 2 rings in the iPod. We are WPN.
the original iPod, which is when we launched in 2005. That was the first generation iPod.
This is timeless.
Such a monumental leap forward in technology. It was not new technology in that we've had tape recorders for so long, but the idea of a solid state device like that held all of this music, primarily, that's what it was there for, that you could access instantaneously, that you didn't have to fast forward or rewind or go through tracks. It was there. And I knew as soon as that was invented and the concept of the podcast, which goes much deeper because of the RSS feeds, but I knew back then that this on-demand radio really is what it was when podcasts were born, because that was the only thing that we could equate it to, was talk radio, information that people just spoke about. You got that on AM radio.
You are a visionary. I know you're modest. You knew it with 21st Century Bride. You knew it with Can of Pop-Up. And you just have that sensibility. So importantly, invest the time to build a strong brand. That includes a compelling logo. We're really proud of this one. This is my favorite one to date. It's Art Deco-ish. Everything in the end, the heart in the end. This just makes my heart happy. Also, you want to create a memorable tagline for Between Over and Next. It's exploring the space between what was, what is, and what's to come. That is our tagline. And establishing a brand's voice and tone. Eileen did our branding and our media kit, and Vicky did our Wedding Podcast Network's website.
It's a little bit of a time capsule because we stopped producing new content in 2012.
So it hasn't been updated in a while, but the essence of it is...
And the podcasts continue to get downloaded because we had the foresight of understanding that creating evergreen content is the key to the long tail in podcasting, making it relevant enough that within the niche in which you podcast, that it's something that when someone discovers your podcast 5 years after you started and you're still producing, they can choose to, as YouTube TV offers you, start at the beginning or join live. And that's the beauty of podcasts. You can discover a podcast who maybe they've been podcasting for a while, and you could decide to go right back to episode 1 and get to know them and watch them evolve, because all podcasters do. If you go back to listen to podcast episode 1 of any podcast, and then you go to their 50th podcast, you can rest assured or hope to hear a very different podcast, because you grow and learn and evolve, and it changes and you change and the sound changes a little bit and your comfort level.
Well, I want to acknowledge regarding the branding that here it is. We had people like Stacy and Eileen and Vicky and others that we invested a lot of time and money to help us create our vision.
And these are all people that, well, we knew obviously Stacy personally, but all the other people that we worked with came through referral.
Yes,
People
but they're
who
talented
referred.
professionals. But what's so cool today, talk about in 2024, is that now you could outsource
Mhm.
and find incredible talent on sites such as Fiverr or Upwork. And Robert, our kind of pop-up logo, which I love, we created that together.
Mhm.
Well, we've created all of our logos together, whether we had other professionals work with us or not, because let me tell you something. You have to know what you like and what you don't like. You have to do research to have a feeling, an idea. It's your calling card. It is your identity. So today you can go into Canva, and at least it's a starting ground to play with font and color, uppercase, lowercase, taglines, positioning. You know, is it going to be landscape? Is it going to be portrait? What is it going to look like?
There's a virtual endless supply of inspiration via templates. And now, as with so many major platforms, creative in many aspects, many of these sites, including Canva, are now being enhanced
With AI.
with AI.
I knew what you were going to say.
You know, Canva, I think, calls it Magic Right.
They do.
And now it's integrated across their entire platform in every medium that you can produce on Canva is supported with Magic Right. If you've listened to us either on this podcast or have gotten to know us through the years on our live videos, sometimes we lament being on the bleeding edge of what we do, technology and innovation. But the truth of the matter is, I would never want to be bringing up the rear in anything. I want to be at the front. I want to learn about everything that's coming, that's new, so that I have the ability to make a determination as to what role it will play in our lives, because you can't, with technology coming as fast and furious as it does, you cannot embrace everything, period. Nothing will get done. You'd be just floundering in a sea of stuff.
You need to be intentional. So you have to develop a unique selling proposition. Your USP matters, your unique selling proposition. Know what your deliverable is. And then you got to gear up to execute this idea, right? You need to bring it to life, your next big thing. So importantly, surround yourself with a support network. Your family, friends, colleagues, mentors, teachers. You want them to be individuals with complementary skills, a shared vision. Consider their experience, their work ethic, their ability to work collaboratively.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really important, because this network can help provide the encouragement you need, the guidance you need. And you always want feedback, because you want to make sure it's aligned with really what's happening in the world right now. Is it relevant? Is it relatable? A few side notes regarding bringing it to life. I think you could be very savvy when it comes to a service, but you still need to invest in things like logo design and website design and social media channels and marketing and video and production talent. Sometimes you need to really get creative to finance your project. I know there are some people that even go on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, if you've got an idea that you think is something that people really want, you can choose to raise money in lots of different ways. And again, technology allows us to do that. How could we have possibly crowdfunded Wedding Podcast Network in 2005? Just didn't exist. You'd be flipping through your Rolodex.
Well, people
and
say, go to your family and friends first,
well,
right?
And then it's still, to a large part, how things get done today.
Definitely.
But the world has become smaller due to our ability to communicate globally at a moment's notice by text, by voice, by video. You have every mode of meeting these days. Okay? Virtually, you can deliver everything but the hug. And that's coming too.
The other thing is, before you do this big reveal, you really need to fine-tune it. So that's something we have done with all of our businesses. Think about Can of Pop-Up, thinking about the timing of when we were going to have our first event. So you have to make those adjustments and contingency plans and quality checks. We are always evolving and want to make sure that everything there is exactly what we want to present to others. Before you launch, you really do need to have a strategy regarding your promotion and your publicity, and leveraging word of mouth and social media, and perhaps having launch events or some initial offerings when you launch your next big thing. There are certain things that everybody needs to do to make it happen as you're implementing your plan. And implementation just means where your ideas is taking physical form. So there are a few key things that everybody needs to do. Number one, you got to stay determined. You have to have a positive mindset. You have to stay the course. You have to deal with challenges. You have to embrace failure. We don't like that word, right? But it's a natural part of the process. Don't be discouraged.
Well, failure, again, I'm going to say it. I think failure is thrown around too easily. There's
turn it around.
Shifts and mini pivots. You're always going to run into roadblocks and all. You have to figure out how to get around them. You can decide to stop, and that's it, and it ends there. But that's really not what it's all about.
Well, it's about
managing.
learning and grow.
You
Want to learn and grow,
Yeah.
right? You want to maintain momentum, okay? We've talked about adaptability. You need to stay open-minded throughout the whole process. You have to know when to refine, to reroute, to pivot. And that's how you'll persevere. We've talked about this on our last episode about celebrating milestones. We need to root each other on, cheer each other on, celebrate those accomplishments along the way.
Yeah, it's so funny as you're talking about it. Two things came into my head. When you're talking about staying flexible and adapting, I'm thinking about the video game Frogger and how you had to get across the road. You had to maneuver around the traffic to get to the other side. But sometimes the best move was not to advance, but was to come back and let the traffic go by until you saw that it was safe to go, right? And I think about that as an entrepreneur. And in achieving goals, I'm watching you play Ms. Pac-Man in my head. And video games are designed for you to achieve goals, is to get past that level and get to the next level. And that is the success, right? Imagine if a video game was just one long level and you never got to achieve different levels. Without that satisfaction, you wouldn't continue on, right? There's that satisfaction of clearing the board and yes, and it flashes and now you're on to the next level and you're doing it all over again. It's the same thing, really. But because you're able to achieve the different levels, it spurs you on to more. So those milestones are important to be able to reach those milestones because each milestone will spur you to the next.
Well, I love Miss Pac-Man, and I love that analogy. And I'm thinking about how my right hand will hurt me so much with that joystick because I keep wanting to do better and better and better. And I do stay committed because I could be there for hours playing that game. You know, whatever your next big thing is, stay committed to it. It's going to require time, effort, and dedication with challenges, with setbacks, just like in video games, right? You're going to keep pushing forward. And eventually you're going to see your hard work's going to pay off. So keep innovating and evolving your idea. So I was thinking about some success stories, and one that came to mind was J.K. Rowling. I just thought about her beginnings. She was working as a researcher and a bilingual secretary in 1990 when she conceived the idea for the Harry Potter series. And that series eventually became not only so many bestsellers, but then also was adapted into a film series. Talk
and
about
theme parks.
Oh my goodness. So that's just one example that comes
and
to mind.
conventions. And,
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
There are always going to be some common themes when you're launching your next big thing. And we talk about these regularly on Between Over Next, about resilience and adaptability and just the willingness to try. That is so important because we know it's within reach. We have achieved it with every one of our brands, and we've pivoted along the way. We're thrilled to have shared these steps with you because remember, with the right approach and a determined spirit, your next big thing is just around the corner. We believe in you and your vision. Visit our website, click the link in the show notes, reach out. Let's make it happen together.
I think one of the things that I don't ever want to have is regret in that I didn't try it. I didn't give it a shot. And I think that really has spurred us on to whenever we were positioned for a next big thing and are always open to new ideas and people's enthusiasm for what it is that they love. And we're always there to give that great idea in turning your dreams and your passions into something that can sustain you and something that when you open your eyes every morning will be something that you're excited about. and not something that you dread, because that's a horrible, horrible existence. And we don't ever want to see anyone going through that. We appreciate you being here with us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for tuning in to Between Over and Next. We hope you enjoyed this episode and found it meaningful and insightful.
If you value it to be worthwhile, please share it with your friends and family.
We would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to write a review for us. Your feedback will help us continue to create content that resonates with you.
And don't forget, in the show notes, you can find all the relevant links mentioned in this episode, from accessing free downloads to visiting our website and more.
If you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. Simply send us an email. Our email address is hello@hollyandrobert.com. We're always excited to connect with our listeners.
So until next time, thank you again for joining us on Between Over and Next.
Thank you for listening to Between Over and Next, the podcast that navigates the twists and turns of life with courage, laughter, and a whole lot of inspiration. Tune in every Tuesday to hang out with Holli and Robert on your favorite podcast platform. Visit hollyandrobert.com and follow them on social media to ignite your passion and fuel your dreams.